What is ASEAN? ASEAN is the Association of Southeast Asian Nations is a political and economic organization consist of 10 countries located in Southeast Asia, which was formed in August 1967 by Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore and Thailand. The membership has expanded to include Brunei, Burma, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. ASEAN has a land area of 4.46 million square kilometers, which is 3% of the total land area of Earth, and has a population of approximately 600 million people, which is 8.8% of the world's population. The sea area of ASEAN is about 3 times larger than its land counterpart. In 2011, its combined nominal GDP had grown to more than $2 trillion. If ASEAN were a single entity, it would rank as the 8th largest economy in the world. ASEAN is an economic and geopolitical organization valuing peace, freedom, and prosperity, one vision, one identity, one community. These aims and purposes were about cooperation in the economic, social, cultural, technical, educational, and other fields, and in the promotion of regional peace and stability. What are the updated program and development of ASEAN? Declaration of ASEAN Concord, signed in Indonesia on February 24, 1976, laid down the framework for a program of action. Political, meetings between heads of governments of members when necessary and the use of peaceful means to settle intra-regional disputes. Economic, cooperation of basic commodities, example food and energy, industry, trade, and approaches to world economic problems. Cultural and information, the study and promotion of ASEAN, its member countries, and its national languages in schools and in the media. Security, cooperation of member countries regarding security issues, improvement of ASEAN machinery, regular study and review of its organizational and constitutional structures. For the ASEAN Free Trade Area, AFTA, signed on January 28, 1992, set effective tariffs and other barriers on imported and exported goods and agricultural products between member countries. Treaty on the Southeast Asia Nuclear Weapon-Free Zone, signed in Bangkok on December 15, 1995, defined nuclear weapon-related terms and stated that each state party undertakes not to develop, manufacture, acquire, possess, station, transport, test, or use nuclear weapons. Therefore, the first ASEAN summit in 1976 constituted the formal basis for building a regional association of states that saw itself primarily as an anti-communist bloc. Times changed, old enemies became new partners, and in the second half of the 1990s, Vietnam, Laos, Myanmar, and Cambodia joined ASEAN. ASEAN on 2020 as a concert of Southeast Asian nations living in peace, stability, and prosperity, bonded together in partnership in dynamic development. This vision will focus on the greater cooperation between ASEAN members in the political and security field, making economic cooperation more integrated and also strengthening the relation between ASEAN societies. These are the good track record of the development of the ASEAN. First, ASEAN has preserved peace and stability in the region. This was a substantial step toward regional integration. ASEAN has developed and expanded the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation in Southeast Asia as a foundation of interstate relations that has been endorsed by 27 states within and outside Southeast Asia. Second, ASEAN's political and security achievements contribute positively to economic development. The ASEAN Economic Community has established a single and open market with many economic opportunities since 2015. Decreases costs, supports free flow of goods and increases investment. ASEAN is working to integrate the association with the world economy and has developed free trade agreements with several partners including Australia, China, Japan, India, South Korea, and New Zealand. Recently, ASEAN is still working on a mega trade pact known as a Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership with these above external partners, ASEAN Secretariat, 2018. The grouping's gross domestic product growth increased from 4.8% in 2016 to 5.3% in 2017. Total trade value grew from $2.238 trillion in 2016 to $2.574 trillion in 2017. Third, ASEAN is focused on building socio-cultural relationships. The ASEAN socio-cultural community also attempts to build ASEAN's identity and character, both of which are people-centered. One other project, the ASEAN Coordinating Center for Humanitarian Assistance on Disaster Response and Management. What are the benefits of the Philippines as a member of ASEAN? For example, the Philippines already allows 100% foreign equity in local banks. Service professionals, with the exception of some like lawyers and architects, continue to practice and work across ASEAN borders. The reality is that Philippine enterprises have been investing in doing business in Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, and Vietnam since the early 1980s. Their experiences, both positive and negative, serve as a good starting point for policymakers and businesses to strategize on which domestic sectors to focus on. The Philippines achieved 6.9% growth in GDP in the last quarter of 2014, establishing 3 years of continuous growth for the first time since the mid-1950s. In 2001, major players such as the Celine Group, Indonesia, Singtel and Keppel Corporation, Singapore, and Chero and Pakfand, CP, Group, Thailand, established their presence in the Philippines, resulting in a continuous increase in portfolio investment in the country. Toward the end of the last century and the beginning of this one, Philippines-based food and beverage enterprises began expanding their operations to select ASEAN countries. Filipino entrepreneurs simply follow the lead of the pioneers who went international despite uncertainties in government policies and the geopolitical environment. Investment in education has helped develop the young population into a dominant workforce that is fluent in English, culturally westernized and constantly moving up the workforce value chain. Remittances from overseas workers are a bigger source of foreign income than tourism. This profile is rapidly changing as more domestic workers are moving into higher skilled and better paid jobs such as information technology professionals, nurses and caregivers. The trend is apparent in the BPO industry too. The Philippines' large pool of university graduates is being hired not just to man call centers, but also for data analysis and software development that feeds into the medical, accounting and legal industries in the United States. For over 20 years, Indonesian companies have been importing Filipino managers to head their marketing, finance and accounting functions. In addition, there are many American multinationals hiring Filipinos to run operations in Vietnam. The Philippines is also becoming an important player in the region for medical tourism. Filipino doctors that trained and practiced in the U.S. are returning home, setting up state-of-the-art hospitals and attracting patients from all over the world who were earlier looking at Thailand or Singapore as their first choice for medical treatment. Realizing the Philippines' agricultural potential. For economic growth to be sustainable, it must trickle down to the rural areas. Here, Filipino policymakers can learn a lesson or two from Thailand, a country that has reaped the long-term benefits of investing. For instance, foreigners are prohibited from investing in media and can only hold a 25% stake in telecommunications and a 40% stake in public utilities. Many Japanese companies have transferred their factories to the Philippines because of high labor and energy costs in Japan. Korea is not far behind. Economic integration can provide the much-needed boost to industry. With an aggregate population of 620 million consumers in Asean, industries can benefit, especially in the area of contract manufacturing. Easier and cheaper travel options for everyone. ASEAN wants to provide easier travel services for their service providers. However, even citizens can enjoy the benefit of improved air, sea, or land travel. ASEAN, there are now visa-free entry countries like Cambodia, Indonesia, and Malaysia. Last October 2017, during the 23rd ASEAN Transport Ministers meeting, members signed several plans to improve transportation within the region. Cheaper goods and services. Other than better travel options, ASEAN also gives nations within the region to do more trade for goods and services. Tax on imported goods is lowered or even eliminated. Navota's Mayor John Ray Tienko said it best during the 50 ASEAN anniversary. A fully implemented ASEAN economic community could mean lower taxes and tariffs for imported goods, and this, in turn, could lead to lower cost of living and a greater purchasing power for us. More and better jobs. Easier and cheaper travel options, goods, and services. It only makes sense that it comes with the extended bonus of better employment opportunities. In fact, by 2025, the sector is expected to grow 500% to $200 billion. One of ASEAN's goals, after all, is to decrease unemployment and underemployment across the region. More study options. The Filipinos would have more access to better jobs if they are better equipped for these emerging roles. For instance, last August 2017, Canada's Minister of Foreign Affairs announced in the ASEAN Regional Forum in Manila that they would be offering a $10 million scholarship program to support post-secondary students and mid-career professionals from Southeast Asia. The National University in Singapore offers scholarships for ASEAN countries for graduate coursework. These are only a few of the examples of quality international support for Filipino students. ASEAN contributes to the advancement of the Philippines as a whole. Because of the incredible support from other Southeast Asian nations, the country is better prepared for globalization. With the Filipinos' way of life eventually improving, it will be no surprise if the economy continues to perform well in the next few years. ASEAN is one of the many reasons why the Philippines is in a good and stable pace, and potential investors, businessmen, and its citizens need not worry about the country's stability. That are the things to know about ASEAN. What is ASEAN? What are progress and updated development of ASEAN, and how the Philippine country and its citizen benefits in ASEAN? Thank you for watching and listening to my video. And the information reference site is www.asean.org.